Okay, I'm going to put this first and everything else after. And then I'm going to do our dandelion salad with tuna on a new video because it's gone past probably a half an hour of this video now because of what you're going to see and hear me say. I am going to play this little clip here. This is from the province itself, right? May 20th, 2020. He's talking about the public union sector, the public school system. He's not talking about Kelsey schools, Muslim schools, private Catholic schools. He's talking about the public school, okay? The public school system that uses public tax dollars to do basically what it wants. So financially, whether he's working in a deficit or not, it doesn't really matter because these guys pull money out of a rabbit's hat anyway. So he's going to make sure he takes care of the public union sector first, people, because basically that's what the NDP represents. But before I talk about that, here, let's just listen to this first.
For one more question, and it's coming from Keith Baldry.
Hi, Premier. Thanks for this. Just a repeat of Vinder's question about the House coming back. Any date for that and what the House will look like? And also the continuing reference to the schools being a dry run for the fall seems to suggest, and we've got sort of conflicting information on this, that what we're seeing in June will be what we see in September as well in terms of the structure of the classes.
Well, let me start, Keith, with the K-12 question first. We want to do a dry run for teachers, for support staff, for administrators,
all
to get
staff.
a sense of what a physical distancing school will look like. And as you'll know, different parts of the province have different enrollment issues. In Surrey and in Souk, where I live, the enrollment is going up year over year. In other parts of the province, it's flat, or in some cases declining. So each school district, each school for that matter, will have different configurations of how they'll operate in June, and that will inform how we prepare for September. But there will be innovation over the summer as people look at what the outcomes were through June and how we can improve upon that. And that's my expectation. Everyone is on the same page here. There's apprehension, absolutely, among parents, among some teachers, and among some support staff. But there is a common focus on making sure that we can reopen our K-12 system in a way that's safe. And we would not be doing it if we didn't have the approval of the public health officers and WorkSafe BC having a look at what the procedures are going to be to protect those people that work within the system.
Who's making the rules here? The public health, which we already know what they do, people. Okay, why is this premier?
The other question about...
Leave his eyes open. God forbid, right? The premier with eyes closed. Let's just finish listening to this.
What the legislature will look like, it will look unlike what it did.
Oh, now they're going to build in, what's the legislature? He didn't say legislation. He said legislature, which is the actual building itself. I don't know if he's trying to talk about legislation, because they're making all these rules. What was it? The Public Health Board and the Workman's Comp, which is all government. Okay?
Even in our one-day session after the COVID-19 came to British Columbia, Minister Farnworth has been working with Mary Polak, the opposition House Leader, as well as Sonia Furstenau, the Green House Leader, on what that will look like. You can expect to see us back here either the 15th or 22nd of June, and we'll be focused on getting the budget passed, getting the estimates process completed, and a modest number of pieces of legislation that we believe are required.
A modest number of pieces of legislation, because they know that what they're fucking doing isn't legal in a what is it called, a democratic institution. They have done nothing in a democratic way, but now they're going to go back in the middle of June, and you just heard what he said, right?
To keep our agenda moving forward.
So now they're going to work on bringing in legislation to keep their agenda moving forward. Their agenda. Not the people's, but their agenda.
We have Mike Farnworth worked very hard with his colleagues, Mary and Sonia, to make sure.
Mike Farnworth. He's an attorney general or the attorney general solicitor, one of those ones.
That we're abiding by the principles of physical distancing, which means that the legislature proper will look different for debates. It'll look different for question period. We're going to be...
Yeah, because before they can bring in legislation, there's rules in a democratic institution, something that these people bypassed a long time ago, but now they're calling in the fucking military, the troops, the cops, to start bum rushing businesses if they don't follow the rules under the guidelines through whatever website that they have before the legislation is even made. I pointed this out yesterday. Now they're backpedaling. That's what they're doing.
Using more technology. We're going to be using multiple rooms within the legislature so that we can keep MLAs at a distance.
Oh my God.
And there will be, I suspect, I'll leave it to Mike to explain most of the details, but we're using a lot of technology that will perhaps allow members, far-flung members, to stay in their community, to be able to actually do their voting by computer.
Oh, okay. So now we've got voting by computer. We have already got voting fraud with computers. So, you know, nobody has to be surprised, but it wouldn't matter who you vote in at this point anyway, because they're all peas in the same fucking pod. Okay? I'm serious. These guys, they want to keep their pension plans. That's the number one priority. Right, so they're gonna go with the order, wherever that fucking order came from. That's where they're going. So in the meantime, I googled quickly racism in Vancouver, BC, and basically I'll provide the link. I'll show you in a second here, but I just want to make a little comment on it because you know, where is it? Okay, so I guess. The East Asian. South Asians are Punjabis. East Asians are now considered the Chinese and those types of people, right? So I guess what is that noise? Do you hear it? It's coming from outside. I guess what's happening in a maybe global context, okay, is people are fed up. People have been quiet for a long, long time with the invasion of their communities, with foreigners. It doesn't matter, people, if it's California and it's poor Mexicans crossing over the border because there's no wall to prevent them from doing that. Or if it's rich Chinese, Punjabis, Filipinos, Israelites, freaking United Emirates people. The point is our countries are being invaded with an overabundance of immigrants from poor to rich, but mainly from rich, right? Because that's what countries like to bring in, is the money, before they bring in the poor. See, in the United States, with the border, the south border, right, Arizona, Texas, California, New Mexico, places like that, it's very easy for people to cross over the border and call asylum and then be able to stay in the country for 3 years as it's going through the court system, right, to do whatever these people do, because, you know, it's Hondurans, El Salvador's, everybody, Haitians, Mexicans, like just Cubans, just everybody wants to get into the United States. But namely, those people are poor. But as soon as they move in to, say, California, which for political reasons has become a sanctuary state, right? simply for votes, nothing more than to get votes for that portfolio, those pensions and those life insurance policies, right? It's not for humanitarian purposes, because as soon as these poor people cross over and flood the existing communities, the people that are in those communities are being forced out into the streets, namely blacks. And yes, more Hispanics. But at the end of the day, you know, the majority of homeless people in the United States are black people, because they're being targeted, people, because people perpetrate racism against them, and because the elected officials cater to the Mexicans, whether they're illegal or not. But namely with the illegals, they cater to them. They let them drive now without driver's licenses. Oh no, I'm sorry. They're allowed to get driver's license, but they just don't have U.S. citizenship, right? You know, I'm right. The point is they take over the housing. You know, they put 15 into a house, whereas if it was a black family, 15 in the house, that were born in that country, in the United States of America, what you're going to get is your local freaking bylaw officers and social workers and all these people flooding that house, telling them that they can't live in that house 15 at a time because of this code and that code and da-dee-dee-da-da-da. But they will turn a blind eye if it's a Mexican family because of the politics, right? Well, it's the same thing with the rich. They come over here, they're wiping down whole city blocks. I've shown you this because our local politicians have been selling off BC to Chinese investors and all these other investors for years, people, since 2010. And not only are they selling off all this land, our home, right? Our opportunities, our peace and liberty, right? But they're fucking running fentanyl. They're laundering money. They're laundering fentanyl money. They've been harvesting organs for a long time, people. People just haven't clued into it because we're conditioned to think that Canadians have this real high standard of ethics to which we do not have. And the more we bring in rich people that build wealth through corruption, and then corrupt the people that they come into contact with, and then gate themselves off into their houses as if it was a gated community, and then it's house after house after house after house with its gate, with its gate, with its gate, with its gate. You know, specific ethnic groups. The Muslims are over there, the Punjabis are over there, the South Asians or East Asians are over there, the Cambodians, you know, so on and so on and so on, and everybody in their fucking gated community. But the poorest of the poor are the organ bank people. Okay? So, it's like the chickens have come home to roost. If you allow Chinese people to basically buy up 60% of Vancouver and then leave 30% of those houses empty, right? So that the people that were born or were raised in that community in terms of Vancouver and had built their lives there can no longer afford to live there. And there's nowhere else for them to go because the problem is everywhere. It's not just isolated to Vancouver, but in Vancouver, it's mainly Chinese, and over the last 10 years, people, they have been buying, laundering money to buy, push out the poorest of the poor, push out the working class, push out the middle class. That's what they've been doing, with a lot of it through laundered money, as our government has been turning a blind eye, and now the government is telling the ones that managed to survive that storm that it's going to get even harder for them. They're going to have more expenses, higher taxes, have the cops come knocking on their door when it's not the health board, when it's not the fucking workman's compensation board, when it's not the fucking doctor. You understand? People are snapping. People are snapping, right? Because they walk down the road and they know that out of 60% of those people that live in that vicinity are Chinese. Not all of them are rich. Some of them are poor. But unfortunately, the majority are people, and they leave their housing empty to accumulate more wealth. And they don't care who they hurt when they do it. Right? They think it's business as usual. And because they come from a communist country that encourages them to carry out that kind of behavior, right? In terms of the, the party of China, right? The big gangster boys that, are embedded out here through the triads and this fucking big boy fucking gang and all these other little fucking, well, they're not little gangs, so that's the thing. We're talking $1 billion gangs out here, people, okay? And so, like, for this premier to get up there and talk about, oh, don't be racist against the East Asian people, you know what? We've been facing fucking racism from them forever. Just because you go into somebody's store and they sell you something doesn't mean that they don't like you. It doesn't mean that they don't fucking wish that you weren't on this fucking planet, because as far as they're concerned, you're just competition to them. Is that everybody? No, it's not. But when you're coming in like a fucking locust, yeah, it is. It is, because the agenda is take over the land-based people. That's political genocide. That is what genocide is all about. There's two ways to do it. You can come in with a fucking machete, chop, 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 burn, 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 chop, 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 burn, burn, and get rid of the problem. Or you can squeeze them out little by little through that boil the frog effect, feed them fentanyl, give them heroin, make them homeless, right? Stalk them, harass them, take their kids from them, and then fucking set them up so that they fail. And then when they fail, go for the kill, and then harvest the organs, because it's already there, people. The system is already there, people. It's been there for a long time. So if it's there, why is the provincial government in bed with fucking China? Why? If they know that they're harvesting organs from living human beings, and they've been doing it for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, and I've said this in my past videos, why is the provincial government cutting backroom deals and front room deals and all these deals with China gangstermen that have now polluted the barrel so bad with their rottenness that the decent Chinese person is paying the price for the corruption of their fucking leaders that came into Canada and got greedy and wanted to take it over, right? Fentanyl was a imported weapon to wipe out the Canadian people, beginning with the poorest of the poor, the most vulnerable, the whites and the blacks and the Indians. That's where it started. Not so much with the Punjabis so much, because, they're a little more stringent with their, temples, and they have their rules, and, they don't like to drink too much, and, but that's not to say that they're not losing their family members to this stuff, because they are, people. They just don't talk about it, right? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, definitely, the Canadian people, the poorest of the poor, and, the ones that didn't get a fair fucking shake, because it was, they've been having to deal with manufactured poverty pretty much from the time of their birth, and could never fucking break that bubble, that little circle, right? Because they're always one step ahead of you. It's just the chickens coming home to roost. That's what it is, right? People are fed up. Walking down the road, they can't find a fucking place to live, but yet you've got 30% of the housing in freaking Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, empty, that is owned by Chinese people overseas. So the ones that are living in the community, that have been in the community for like ever, right? They're the ones that are paying the price for the government's corruption. For the government's corruption, people, and getting in bed with Chinaman gangsters. And being that fentanyl was a weapon against the Canadian people, nobody would be not quick to say that this coronavirus isn't the coffin on the nail to clean us out. Because as soon as we are gone, you see the buildings, people. They're not going to fill up with us. Okay? They're not. They're going to fill up with people coming in through the back door. People coming in through the back door that can pay. Because if they can pay, then these politicians get their pension plans. They keep the union happy because they'll get their pension plans and superannuation life insurance policies and all this other shit, and they won't do shit about criminal activity. Nope. 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 This premier wants to save money. Use ShaMay as an example. You'll save yourself $1 million right there. But he's not interested in that. Because out of ShaMay, right, if he wanted, we'll just cap it off at $500,000 for what it costed to leave her dead body on a machine for 9 days. If he wanted to save that $500,000 and do the right fucking thing, he would be shutting down the system, the organ bank. But they're not shutting down the organ bank, people. They're creating it for the Chinese and anyone else that's capitalizing off of this. Because it's not just the Chinese that are running organs illegally any more than it's just the Chinese running fentanyl illegally. But when it comes to Vancouver, 30% of the housing is empty or unaffordable, while 60% is basically owned by Chinese. As the people that were born in Vancouver and grew up in Vancouver and built their businesses in Vancouver are being forced out yearly, and we're talking thousands at a time. This is the chickens coming home to roost. So why doesn't the premier address the corruption within his own government ranks? Why doesn't he send back the crooked gangsters? Send them back to fucking China. Why doesn't he stop doing business with China until they stop illegally harvesting their own people? Because they've brought that here, people. But you see, they don't want you talking about all that. They don't want people getting together and congregating and figuring it out. Because it's all starting to come to the surface now, right? More and more people are starting to realize what the hell is really going on here. And the more that they start to realize, the more they're going to start to see that some of these people are not people, they're things. There's something else going on behind their shape-shifting fucking look, okay? Whether it's some sort of a, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I just know that this is beyond normal humanitarian freaking behavior. So here it is. This is why I told my parents, where am I? Here we go. They aren't to go out at all, and my white husband is the only one going out to get groceries for both households. It's coronavirus, it's COVID-19, but also threat of racist acts. Sorry. Not worth the risk. Sometimes the city really breaks my heart. Okay. Has put a harsh spotlight on the anti-Asian racism that has always existed in Canada. Anyway, I'll just leave this here. Right? They're not going to tell you that the Asians are running fentanyl. People are fed up with it. They're not going to tell you that the Asians are buying up all the properties and keeping them fucking empty. I have shown you 2 places, 2 houses, people, that are empty within a 1-block radius that I know for a fact are being owned by Chinese people. Because when I know this house over here that Andre, you'll see in this video, with the grass just cut enough so that when the city drives by, all they see is that one little piece cut, right? Because that house is empty. And the people that bought that house were Asian. Just like the people over there are Asian, Chinese. Because that's how they make their money, people. Well, that's what they've done to Vancouver. They bought up so much property, kicked everybody out through rent evictions, raised the rent so much that nobody can afford to live there, and they preferably prefer to keep their places empty. They don't even like to rent them out. They're not interested in the money because they don't need the money. And unfortunately, it's those rotten apples in the East Asian barrel that has made it difficult for the rest of these people that are being, I guess, picked on, right? Because the world has gone mad. It's enough that we've been dealing with fentanyl because of China. And now that people are starting to figure out that illegal organ harvesting is happening as a direct result of corrupt politics and a corrupt healthcare system, as in general, just a corrupt public union sector in general, because it's tax dollars that are facilitating the taking out of organs in public hospitals and then being sold on the black market. The government doesn't want people to know about that, so of course they're going to make everybody social distance to keep the secret. And they're not going to take responsibility for the Chinese being picked on because they've allowed the Chinese to accumulate mass wealth over a long time, because at the end of the day, you know, it's those backroom deals that bring in that extra money that trickles down into their portfolios. May 20th, 2020. You can hear it. Alright. All day long. I think they're building this building like 4 or 5 stories high. So I figured this will probably go on for what? Another 4, 5, 6 months. I mean, they're putting it up pretty fast, but still. Right. Big building boom. And half the province going into depression in terms of worse than the 1920s. You see, these guys are going back and forth. It's okay, right? Because we've got a lot of hypocrisy out here. It's okay to walk by somebody outside and breathe, but it's not okay to walk by somebody in a store and breathe. Right? Because walking in a store and breathing doesn't make money, right? It doesn't provide a means to launder money, right? Whereas buildings like this, very easy to launder money, right? And like I said, they'll be bringing in immigrants through the back door, right? To fill up these places because they're the only ones that can afford to buy these places. Not so much this building, because this one's geared more for the old people. But what the old people don't realize is they're being flushed out of their houses, right? With, you know, just look at Uncle John, people. I seriously don't know what's going on. Oh my. Featuring trucks today. It's been like this all day. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Well, what you gonna do, right? I don't know why they like parking right in front of my house. But they do. Do you notice that? They like being by Fertile Myrtle. You know, it's all guys, right? So, I mean, who wouldn't want to be around Fertile Myrtle? Right? Wait till she starts producing berries. Oh my God, what is this? You could do a whole mini-series around that. See? Another one just drove by. You see him? It's like back and forth, back and forth. You see? And then, see? Down there, right? Can you hear it? Apparently it just drove on by. Crazy.
If you go down there. Okay, people. So you see? Another truck.
They're all over the place.
Yeah. Because they're working up there.
Yeah.
Okay, bye. Okay, people. So, do you see? Another truck.
It's a truck day.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll walk down to the other site to see the other trucks. When
There's the cranes.
Yeah.
They're really high.
There's the cranes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I asked the guy how long it's going to take. The flag guy, right?
Yeah.
He says, oh, it's anybody's guess. He says he's worked on lots of sites where it's gone over its projection. Okay.
Okay, people, do you see this? Like, who gets up so easily, huh? Like, that's only a little bit of grass.
Yeah, show what they did.
See? That's only a little bit, and they still have more to do.
And they didn't do this side over here.
Yeah.
Just enough for the city to see. They did just enough so that when the city drives by, that's all they see is that little part cut. But they didn't do that over here. And that over here. Honestly, I think this is another empty house.
Because
I never.
There's a sign.
Where?
Over there.
Oh yeah, but I never see no cars, nothing. Nobody ever moves in this place. I think honestly this is another empty house.
Yeah. Come on, let's go.
Okay, same day. Trucks have calmed down. Anyway, Andre and I, we went to the store. I'll show you what I got. I like to support my local convenience store. But in the meantime, I went outside and I cut down the lemon balm, some of it, and I'm going to rinse it quick. I'll show you. And tie it and then hang it. I'm going to start drying it for teas. Okay? So, right? Hold on. There's our beef. See? Frozen 2013, canned May 2020. Okay? So we know when we open it what we've got, right? Here's for salad. I don't know if I already showed you. Okay, we're Andre and I bought some tuna at the corner store here. I'll show you in a minute. So we decided to make dandelion tuna salad. But here's some mint that I'm going to put in it. I'm going to put in some lemon balm. There's our little dandelion leaves. And I've got other lettuce. Here is comfrey that's starting to grow in my yard. You don't really ingest comfrey, right? But you can use it externally on the outside of your body for healing really, really bad wounds. Or I'm going to try it again underneath my feet because I've got really bad feet. So I'm going to start harvesting my comfrey again. And I'm going to try and use it as a paste on a paper towel or something. Hold on. Okay, people, it is still May 20th,
running into a snowbird at the
2020.
airport.
I'm listening to the premier of this province,
how inspired my spouse,
and I thought I'd turn this on because as soon as he's done talking about the snowbirds, he's going to talk about racism that's like, I don't know, he doesn't be specific about. We'll listen, hold on. It's coming.
Condolences to the family of Jen Casey and all of the snowbirds and all those that have supported them over the years. I want to move from a sad situation to an equally sad situation, and that is the rise of racism here in British Columbia. It is absolutely unacceptable to see this increase in people taking it out, their concerns, their frustrations, on people of color, people of a different religious perspective, people of a different sexual orientation. Hate has no place in British Columbia. We are a strong and vibrant economy and a strong and vibrant community because of the diversity that is what makes up this great province. I just can't stress enough how it's just no longer acceptable. And I'm grateful to see citizens standing up to racism when they see it. A number of news stories about individuals who said enough is enough and stepped in the way of racist behavior. We need to do that with increasing regularity. I know all members of the legislature and all British Columbians are focused on making sure that love conquers hate and that we can squish racism out of our community once and for all. We are now on day 2 of phase 2 of the restart of the BC economy.
Day 2 of phase 2.
And although there have been some bumps along the way, and there will be bumps as we go through the next week or two, I believe we're off to a good start. British Columbians are anxious to get back to whatever normal is going to be in the days and weeks and months ahead. And in order to do that, we all have to be, as Dr. Henry suggests, kind and calm. We need to make sure we're not trying to force the opening of a business that's not ready to go. And we want to make sure that we're not forcing employees to go into situations that they're not comfortable with. That's why we've been working with WorkSafe BC and the public health officers to make sure that when people are going back to work, they're comfortable, they're safe, and that patrons can also feel that way.
We're just going to listen to this, people.
I know there's lots of questions. Leave it.
It's a state of emergency!
On the restart, but on balance, I'm pretty satisfied with how we're underway. We've got a lot of work to do, and there are many sectors that are concerned that they don't quite have the plan right for their success. But we'll keep working on that together, and we'll get a better outcome as a result.
I watched everything.
Reminder to reporters on the phone, please press *1 to enter the queue and unmute your phones. You won't be audible.
Okay, let's just listen to this. I'll provide the link.
Today is from Richard Zussman.
All right, for anyone that wants to listen more.
I just want to touch on a point that you just made there about people being forced.
People being forced now back to work.
With the schools coming back on June 1st, there have been some issues that have been emerging.
Public
union is from teachers concerned that they are exposing themselves to other people's bubbles. So
they're exposing themselves to other people's bubbles.
You're concerned about the interactions teachers will have with their students and whether those teachers are put into a position where they feel safe. And also, on the flip side of that, we're hearing from parents who are saying their employers are saying, you must come back to work now because schools will be back open and you have somewhere to send your kids. Are you concerned about that element as well, that parents are being told that the schools are now open so they can return to work?
Good questions. I'll start with the larger expanding the bubble for teachers. We considered all of those issues. Minister Fleming has been working for the past 8 weeks, on trying to find the right mix of bringing kids back so that we can have a dry run for the start of the new year in September. And we've done that in a way that is voluntary when it comes to parents and children, but also in a way that will meet the needs of teachers, support staff, administrators, and all of those important people that keep our K-12 system operating. I want to assure teachers, I want to assure parents that we would not have opened up schools again in June if we did not believe it was safe to do so. We've worked with public health officials, we've worked with WorkSafe BC, who's in the business of making sure that workers always go to work safe and come home the way they left. These are challenging times. These are times filled with anxiety. But we've tried to reduce that anxiety as much as possible by putting in a plan that will allow for social distancing, physical distancing, for teachers
I'll
and
turn
kids,
this off in a minute and then I'm going to talk,
as well as making sure that we're reminding children of how joyous school can be. And it is, again, a voluntary. It is only for the month of June. It will be part-time for K to 5. There'll be a bit more instruction. For 6 to 12, there'll be less instruction. But for those kids that are having challenges with online learning, this is an opportunity to get a little bit of face-to-face instruction so they can maybe capture some of the elements of whatever the section of the
two-tiered system, people.
Difficulty. I think this is
a lot of these immigrant groups out here have their Kelsa schools, their Muslim schools. The Catholic Church has its private Catholic schools. He's just specifically talking about the public union sector in terms of the public school system here, right?
We're developing a child care network in British Columbia because we desperately need it for our economy to be strong and for all people in BC to participate, men and women. The challenge, of course, is that we are in a different time than we were in January. We had a 10-year plan to implement childcare.
Yeah, well, it costed too much money, so they squashed it. That's what happened.
Stopped because of COVID-19. So as we come
That's
out
the
of
excuse,
COVID-19,
people. They didn't want to invest the money into childcare.
Is that uniformly across the economy, people understand now and recognize the importance of childcare to a robust economy that includes everybody.
I could probably do childcare. I bet you I could do childcare.
Not the role and
I'm actually thinking to put a little sign out.
Is it a place where your kids can be during the day? Absolutely. But let's not.
Amari and Andre are like really healthy people.
Focus on bringing little ones
not
to a
getting
place
no
where
colds,
they can step
nothing.
into kindergarten and then go through to grade 12. That's what the system is designed to do, and we're going to keep working and building on that.
I might do that.
Forward. Employers
just see
should
what
not
happens.
be forcing employees to come to work if they're not ready.
One or
to do
two
so.
children.
We've been clear with employers, and as we've talked
depend on their age.
Economic
I
Recovery
don't want a
Task
baby.
Force, there's been a sense of a cooperation and a hopefulness from both labor and employers groups, and I'm confident that we'll get through this. The conflict that you're suggesting may be modest.
3, 4-year-old, maybe a 5-year-old, 6-year-old is okay.
Our next
7, 8, those are fine. But no babies.
Hi, Premier. The Prime Minister says discussions with the provinces are ongoing on what type of stricter measures will be needed once the restrictions at the U.S. border are eased. Is a monitoring tracking...
People want to come home to BC
movements
and be with their families, and they can't.
For people returning, something you might want to see being used going forward?
Well, I'm pretty happy with the border efforts that we've got in place today. And that took some time to get to, and it was a
I don't know who they're saving.
The federal government, who has primary responsibility.
They're saving money. That's what they're doing.
Provincial government
they're
employees who
shifting it somewhere else.
Crossings into the Vancouver International Airport.
Creating more government jobs.
Ensuring that everyone coming into British Columbia had a self-isolation plan.
Target people.
That's worked very, very well.
And they want to talk about racism?
Of the,
that's just that's so stupid.
People who have come into British Columbia. Since the program was instituted, have required
the ones that are being targeted are people like my family. People, the ones with no money that can't fucking fight back.
The program.
The ones that can't get lawyers to fight back.
Or electronic monitoring is the best way
these people can do whatever they want to us. It doesn't matter. We can't fight back.
You can give to government. To Dr. Henry,
right? And they want to talk about fucking racism.
Program in place that's worked very well, and we've used the old.
I'm gonna Google that. I'm gonna find out what the hell's going on downtown.
Sure that people are self-isolating, and that's worked very effectively for us.
Homeless people get picked on all the time for years and years and years and years. Nobody stood up for them.
We don't know. I'm just grateful that Canada and the United States have once again. Put in place restrictions at the border, and we'll keep monitoring.
This province is full of racism, people. I told you through my videos. I already told you. The Muslims are over there. The Punjabis are over there. The Chinese are over there. The Hindus are over there. The Fijis are over there. The Cambodians are over there. The Africans are over there. The Jamaicans are down the road over there, right? The fucking Caucasians, depending on where they come from, the Catholics are over there. The Christians are over there.
Twice within the past week, all the other neighboring businesses not touched it up.
This province is full of racism. This is nothing new. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. What do you think these fucking buildings are about out here, people, that nobody can afford?
Businesses reopening, they're finding that their costs have increased substantially due to the procurement of personal protective equipment, and they're passing those costs on to the consumers. Your thoughts on that?
Spend $10,000 to make everybody sit apart and throw in $5,000 worth of plexiglass. And then make half the money and pay more taxes.
Caught, they can expect the full force of the law to come down upon them.
Are you listening?
There is no space in British Columbia.
There's the big threat.
Behavior. I know, talking to Del Manick, the chief of police here in Victoria, as well as observing the good work of the Vancouver Police Department and the RCMP that
here comes the military state.
Regularly. Within the law enforcement community, there is zero tolerance for racism. When you look at the diversity of law enforcement, of fire crews, of our legislature,
well, we know how I feel about our public union sector, RCMP, paramedics, hospital staff.
And if these perpetrators are
they targeted ShaMay. She was black, people.
We're working cooperatively.
She couldn't fight back. She was poor. Same thing with Ciera. She was black. She was poor.
The Green Party also suggesting ways that they think that we could better work together to speak with one voice on this very, very important issue. I'm the son of an Irish immigrant, and I have not
He's white!
racism, but I am as new to Canada as anyone else. Indigenous peoples have been here.
He's got money.
Years. The rest of us came from somewhere else.
He doesn't like to deal with real problems.
Families. That's what's made this country spectacular.
Real problems in the real community.
Columbia. Racism is not on. We got to stamp it out. We all have to do
bullshit. Do something about what's going on in the hospital and the healthcare system. Do something about the targeting of vulnerable families that happen to have black in them or white
childcare are calling on your government
white people.
To fast track that $10 per day.
White people aren't being have to struggle with racism out here.
I'm wondering. I didn't hear anything that indicated you were looking at fast tracking that.
Some people see you coming and they just close the door on you.
On the table,
unless, of course, you're spending money.
There's no shortage of
right?
ideas that come
If you're going to go spend money, then that's okay.
We've had a cross-government approach to responding.
But if you want to rent a place,
Minister Carol James is
these days,
the costs and consequences.
If you can't fork out $4,000,
part of the $5 billion recovery plan, as well as what resources do we need to add to the existing budget to meet.
There are people out there looking for places that can't find because the landlords are being discriminatory against them, okay? That's a fucking fact, people.
And I understand
there are houses, I've shown you 2 houses that are empty in a 1-block radius that have been sitting empty that are being owned by Chinese people that don't do shit because they're racist. They don't want to rent it out to the local neighborhood residents, okay? They want to keep them empty because then it becomes more profitable to sell them that way.
We already had in place is not likely in the short term. We need to make sure we're educating more early childhood educators. We need to connect, as one of the earlier questions suggested, education to early childhood education. This is one of the calls from advocates.
Like I said, I really shouldn't listen to this stuff. It disturbs me.
And Family Development. We're looking at expanding and moving it.
I want to do my chart.
System
but
in terms
I
of
gotta do this.
And ensuring that
I wanted to do this before
toddlers right to graduate.
They started to flower.
And we have a lot of work to do. You can
Andre
call that
wants
acceleration. You can call that
lemon bomb tea.
What I know and what I'm excited about is that everyone in British Columbia understands the importance of childcare now that might not have thought that even 2 years ago.
I'll do this.
Our next question is from Martel Bernardo.
Make that salad too.
I'm going to.
Okay.
We're having tuna dandelion salad.
You touched a bit about the border control and what's being done to try to mitigate the concerns there. I got an email this morning from someone who's saying that it's okay for me to drive across the country to go visit family in Quebec, but not across the border to visit family in Washington State or friends in Washington State, where the death toll isn't as high as it is in Quebec. I guess, how do you respond to something like that?
Well, certainly we have mobility rights in Canada. They're enshrined
so
in
far,
the Constitution.
They're trying to bring in border control between the provinces, though. They're already talking about it.
Whether it be trade or virus or any other external forces. That's what border patrols and border security is all about. Dr. Henry and I and Minister Dix talked about how we can relieve some of the stress, because there are many people who do have family connections into Washington State and they want to go and visit their family.
See, this is what you do.
As the summer goes by, as we continue to see positive outcomes with respect to caseloads, hospitalizations, and all of the issues that Dr. Henry raises on a daily basis, we'll be in a better position.
There's the comfrey. I've got more growing in the yard, so I will get them later. This is the lemon balm. Do you see? And then I'll hang them someplace, right?
Country, as well as in Golden
listen to this for a bit more.
That Alberta.
You never know what you're going to hear with this stuff.
A border that is porous. People go back and forth from both
I got
sides
more
on a
lemon
regular
balm.
Basis. That's part and parcel of our Canadian citizenship, and I don't want to jeopardize that.
We've lost our Canadian citizenship here, people. I don't know who the fuck he thinks he's fooling.
The ability to go to Quebec, where the caseloads are very high.
You know, if he thinks he's got problems now with so-called racism, well, that racism, it's always been there, people. It's always been there, right? You know. They've got so many empty buildings downtown that are owned by Chinese people that just keep them fucking empty. As the people themselves that were in Vancouver are being pushed out. Like, you know, I'm not saying it's Chinese that are being picked on because he wasn't being specific, right?
With the Prime Minister on
you know, they're always politically correct. They can't freely talk, right? You know.
BC's backup plan if we can't get the other premiers and the Prime Minister on board on that? Can we develop our
right?
own...
Like me, I talk freely, right?
Well,
You know,
it's certainly on the table.
A politician can't, though, because if they say the wrong thing, you know, they don't get elected next year, and that's not their priority in terms of not getting elected. They want to be getting elected. That's why they all jumped on the same bandwagon with the same playbook, with this take away people's rights for, you know, ever, and just make a fucking organ bank for the rich as they're coming in through the back fucking door, buying up all these properties that the people that were born in this country, regardless of their race, unless of course their parents have lots of money to, you know, get that process going. And not every Punjabi is rich out here. Not every Chinese person is rich out here. Not every Fiji person out here is rich out here in order to be able to help their children, you know, establish their own home, right? But so, you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's fucking, oh, I'm so mad. It makes me so mad.
And you cited some of the cities in the interior. It's come to my attention today that
Canada is a very corrupt country. Very corrupt.
Criteria for the resumption of play. One main arena.
See, there's that one. Now I'll go. I got another one.
2 downtown hotels to kind of keep a bubble concept. How well positioned do you think Vancouver still is, Premier, to become a hub city? You spoke very passionately about it last week, even though this criteria seems to be more defined. And
I have more, so tomorrow or maybe later I'll go get them.
Where does Vancouver stack up? And I know you've talked
because this is better. I'm going to show you what I bought at my corner store here, right? But if I'm going to, you know, go off and buy tea bags, and I've got tea products growing in my yard, well, I might as well just
do this. I opened up the idea of using Western Hockey League rinks across the province because we do have a rich hockey tradition in every corner of British Columbia. And really superior rinks in places like Kelowna, an AHL rink.
Okay, I need another. Coat hanger. Hold on. Okay. See, these politicians, they don't want to take responsibility for the destruction that they bring to this province, and they have been for a long time, with them selling off the province to foreign investors, right? Okay? And I'm telling you people, with this living in a bubble, they're giving a lot of different ethnic groups exactly what they want, because they already live in their own gated communities, right? And, you know, like that little house, right? I was there for how long? A year? Just enough for it to be tore down. Well, first it was run to the ground. Like that bathroom was never fixed properly, people. The people that lived in that house went through a lot because it had plumbing problems when they moved into it, right? And so anyway, what I'm trying to say is, you know, after they tore down the house, they didn't care where 250 homeless people went. They didn't give a jack shit, right? Because that's not the agenda, to care about other people in the community. And these politicians, they know it, but they don't want to take responsibility for the harm that they cause innocent families. So of course they're going to blame other people for the reactions of what the politicians are doing. Right? If you've got a whole bunch of people from China buying up all these properties downtown and then basically leaving them empty, right? It was so bad that the government started doing heat sensors on them to see if anybody was actually living inside. As the numbers of homeless people is increasing, right? And they expect people not to act out, but it's okay to abuse homeless people though, right? It's okay to abuse them. That's not being discriminatory. That's not being racist, right? Because, you know, they're homeless, right? Doesn't matter whether Ciera was black or not. She was homeless. So that doesn't constitute racism when she's being targeted through the jail system, through the court system, through every other fucking government system, right? No, that's not racism. That's politics. She made her own choices. Yeah, right. She made her own choice to be introduced to drugs in school when she was fucking 13 years old. That was her choice. No, people, she was targeted. And by 14, you know, when I wanted to take her out of those bad environments, all the cops had to say was, well, she's old enough to make her own decisions. She's 14 years old. She can be in there doing meth. It doesn't really matter because we can't do shit. Federal law. Federal law. Yeah, okay, federal law. Federal law. Only when it's applicable for them. Because Ciera was targeted in school to end up the way she was, people. At the very end of her life. Right? And you multiply Ciera by tens of thousands across this province. They can't even give you the numbers. 2 days ago, 3 days ago, whatever it was, one of those news reporters asked about people dying from fentanyl out here. And that health minute, or what's her name, Bonnie, Henry Bonnie or whatever her name is, she couldn't come out with the fucking numbers in terms of how many people have died from fentanyl in the last 2 months. She couldn't even come out with a rough estimate. All she had to say was it was namely men by themselves. The same old okie dokie. It was suicide. He was by himself. He was depressed. He was a construction worker who had a job. He didn't like his job, so he went home and snorted some coke, and it was laced with meth, or fentanyl, I should say, and he killed himself by accident or by suicide. Same thing with his buddy. 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 And I can guarantee you, people, these organs are being harvested as I speak. The Premier won't talk about that. Of course not. Because that's laundering of money. It's an underground economy that they've been fucking getting away with for a long, long fucking time. Right? And they blame the victims for their fucking nefarious activities. Maybe the Premier himself isn't directly participating, but he could put a fucking end to it if he wanted to, but he doesn't want to, because if he starts shaking the boat, they're going to push him out of the fucking boat, and he won't be a premier next time the elections come. And he's more interested about being a premier than he is about doing the right thing for the people that he is supposed to represent in terms of people that live in British Columbia, Canada as a whole. Oh, it's okay for these men to go out there and work these fucking buildings for all these overseas buyers, whether they're from China, Punjab, wherever they're fucking from. It's okay for these guys to go out there and bust their butts out there every damn day, right? But it's not okay for them to get justice because it was either a suicide or an accident, right? They did it to themselves. They can't even come up with the freaking numbers when they're fucking called on it, but yet they can drop the coronavirus numbers real fast, keep everybody paranoid and everybody scared. Say it's an order, but can't come in with the actual legislation, with the rules and the regulations and the mandates, but yet it's an order. Well, cough up the fucking order. Show us where it says right here in this legislation that it's an order. As they're making threats now to have cops go bust into businesses because the businesses can't afford the $10,000 investment in order to make half as much money as they were making before, as the government now is going to start taxing them more to compensate for everything else that they fucking shifted their money into N95 masks, you know, and gowns and ventilators. And, well, if the Premier really wants to save freaking money, why doesn't he get busy and start doing a freaking internal audit on ShaMay and find out how much money it costed the taxpayers, not him, but the taxpayers of this province? How much money did it cost the taxpayers of this province, people, to hook up a dead body for 9 freaking days after it was embalmed, illegally embalmed in a hospital? I'd like to see him address that issue, because that is the fucking issue. Because if he doesn't address that, people, and come to terms as to what is going on with his employees, his government employees, you can guarantee that what these people are doing right now in terms of politicians is nothing more than creating an offshoot of the China fucking organ bank, targeting of vulnerable families, regardless of their ethnic heritage. So he needs to back off with his, oh, there's so much racism going on in British Columbia, Canada, and it's so unacceptable, even though I'm the one that pissed everybody off, made them so depressed that they're turning out to be fucking lunatics. That has nothing to do with me, because the order says don't go crazy, even though I'm going to make you go fucking crazy. And at the end of the day, who do you think's going to be targeted? Do you think it's going to be the ones sitting up in these gated fucking monster houses or in these freaking high-rise? Well, yeah, maybe 1 or 2 out of thousands. Only 1 or 2 out of thousands. The thousands will come first from the 2 million that this government and other governments across the board, I don't want to even say like them. Doesn't matter if it's Republican. It doesn't matter if it's NDP. It doesn't matter if it's an independent. It doesn't matter if it's a Green Party. Because none of those guys or women want to lose their jobs. No. They want to stay on the bandwagon, fearmonger, and be power fucking control freaks. That's what it is about. So that they can build in their permanent organ bank and then sit up there and blame the victims as they're out there working, and then go home and then just suddenly decide to kill themselves, and they will completely rule out murder like they did with ShaMay, because they don't want to investigate the murder, people, because they want the body going into the emergency room so they can pillage it, rip out the teeth, take out what they want from the inside, and fucking sew them back up, put them on a hospital bed, hook them up to machines for 9 fucking days. If the Premier is listening to this, so be it. He needs to hear it, because that's what happened, people. That is what fucking happened to ShaMay's body. If he wants to save fucking money, clean the swamp. Do a Trump. Be a man. Fucking clean the swamp.